I made the decision to come back in McLaren for two reasons. The first is the desire to win. I think McLaren-Honda project has the same values and the same target of winning and be the best in Formula One. This project is very attractive and I could not say no.
GP2 engines. GP2.
You always ask the questions, where is it? When are you going to be competitive? And then you get, every time I speak to the press, it's, how about now? How about now? How about now? How about now? It's unbelievable, the pressure from the outside. But from the inside, we know where we are. We know we're improving. We're positive.
Top 3 wishes for the new owners of F1.
Equal engines for everyone.
But not electric.
Yeah, and not Honda.
There's Romain Grosjean third here. Wasn't he a few years ago for Lotus, breezing past the Honda engine of the McLaren?
Embarrassing. Really embarrassing.
It's the 29th of January, 2015. Formula One is about to enter its second season with the turbo hybrid power units. The 3 engine suppliers that participated in last year's campaign are working hard to improve upon the progress made in 2014. But this time, there's a new kid on the block, partnering up with a team which they achieved huge success with in the past. Introducing the Honda-powered MP430. For the car launch, McLaren uploaded a video to their YouTube channel titled "Time to Make History." And oh boy, you bet they made history. McLaren would go on to have their worst season in 35 years. In fact, the entire 3 years they had Honda as their engine suppliers were abysmal. There are 2 key qualities a power unit must have in order to be successful: power and reliability. And Honda didn't have either of those. Their lack of power was clear for everyone to see. All you have to do is watch the highlights from the 2015 Japanese Grand Prix to know just how much of a liability the Honda engines were. As for their reliability, it would be better for me to portray their struggles through some statistics. From 2015 to 2017, McLaren accumulated a whopping 825 grid place penalties for changing power unit components. That equates to qualifying on pole and starting 20th for 41 Grand Prix, or the entire 2016 and 2017 seasons combined. For comparison, teams with Mercedes engines only took a total of 55 grid place penalties during that same time frame. But gone are the days with McLaren and enter the present, where Honda are powering Red Bull in their championship fight with Mercedes-Benz. Who would have thought the engine manufacturers that became a meme for years would produce the best power units in Formula One? So in this video, I wanted to shed some light on the story of how Honda got to this point, what exactly went wrong with McLaren, and how they overcame that early misfortune to win again. It goes without saying that the McLaren-Honda project was a complete disaster. A majority of the blame was directed towards Honda for their underpowered and unreliable engines, but McLaren weren't entirely innocent themselves. As the CEO of the company, and a man who desperately wanted his team to quickly progress from being known as just another Mercedes customer team, Ron Dennis had pressured Honda into entering the sport a year earlier than they had planned. Additionally, both parties came to an agreement on an unrealistic set of dimensional targets for the engine, one they called the Size Zero philosophy. Essentially, Honda were required to design an engine around a very tight McLaren chassis to create what in theory was a great concept. But in reality, that was far from the case. In 2014, Martin Brundle explained how Mercedes were able to obtain such a significant power advantage over their competitors in a great piece on Sky Sports. At the time, we learned that Mercedes were running a different turbo arrangement to Ferrari and Renault, where they split the turbine and compressor to either end of the internal combustion engine and connected them via a shaft running down the middle. This brought with it a great deal of benefits: better ERS efficiency, more compact aero packaging, and a lot more. However, Honda wanted to take that idea one step further. Their concepts revolved around fitting the compressor within the V of the engine. Not only did this give the rear of the McLaren smaller overhang than the Ferrari or Renault, but it also meant the engine didn't need to be moved further back, like the split turbo layout of the Mercedes. But in order for the compressor to actually fit within the V, it had to be smaller than those of its rivals. Now, there was a pretty simple solution to compensate for the reduction in size. Just run it at a faster rate to give the same boost. However, at first, the MGU-H, which runs on the same shaft as the turbo, couldn't run at the required speed due to a vibrational issue. Eventually, this issue was fixed, and it was expected that they would come close to being competitive. Unfortunately though, this isn't what happened. As the compressor speed was increased, the frictional resistance also increased, which compromised the power unit's energy efficiency, meaning it couldn't recharge the battery as fast. This made tracks like Spa absolutely horrible for the McLaren Honda, as they could only use the extra 160 bhp on one of two of the straights. In fact, there were sections of the track where they were running 200 bhp down on other cars. According to project leader Yasuhisa Arai, Honda identified that the issue was related to the way the turbo had been laid out, but they were unable to change it during the season. As part of Honda's restructuring in 2016, Arai would be replaced by Yasuki Hasegawa as project leader. During that year, Honda made some impressive steps forward on the other engine suppliers, helping McLaren improve their constructors' position to P6. But this advancement fueled an overly ambitious target. We have a plan to challenge Mercedes in 2017, predicted Hasegawa at the end of 2016. So what exactly was that plan then? To redesign the entire power unit and make drastic changes to the arrangement of the turbo, compressor, and MGU-H. The new design followed the Mercedes split turbo layout mentioned earlier, but with the MGU-H in the center of the V, all connected via a shaft. This modification aimed to improve thermal efficiency, and other major objectives included reducing the overall weight of the unit and lowering the center of gravity. Honda admitted that this concept was high risk and would take time to reach its maximum potential. But at this point, McLaren were coming to the end of their road. The Bahrain Grand Prix was probably the worst weekend of the year and a turning point in their decision to part ways with the Japanese manufacturers. Both Fernando Alonso and Stoffel van Dorn had a combined 5 engine failures, with 3 of those affecting the Belgian, who didn't even make it to the start, as his power unit gave up on the outlap from the pits. Honda revealed that some dyno correlation problems severely compromised the early performance and reliability of the 2017 engine. They did manage to make some progress, but not enough to satisfy McLaren, and the two announced that they would separate at the end of the year. But it turned out that parting ways with the toxic relationship at McLaren would be the best thing for Honda to succeed. On the 15th of September 2017, it was announced that the Japanese manufacturers would be the engine suppliers for Toro Rosso for 2018. This provided an opportunity for them to develop in a much lower profile environment. One of the main problems that contributed to all the failures at McLaren was a lack of communication and collaboration. Toro Rosso, on the other hand, were very open about their internal workings, and Honda acknowledged this by showing key members inside the research projects in Sakura, in places where no McLaren member had ever set foot. This season was very much a turning point for Honda, as they took their F1 efforts to another level. Greater funding, better facilities, and a much more effective management structure. Throughout the year, they pushed relentlessly with development, with the power unit becoming a more refined version of the architecture first used with McLaren in 2017. Their Spec 2 engine made its debut at the Canadian Grand Prix, where they noticed a significant improvement in power while also bettering reliability. During practice for the Russian Grand Prix, the Spec 3 power unit was introduced nearly a month earlier than originally planned. Again, the drivers reported a big step forward in terms of power through the rev range, but the engine's drivability wasn't great. So they reverted back to the old spec for the rest of that weekend and worked on optimizing the engine mappings and gearbox synchronization to aid the issue for their home race in Japan. Honda found that the upgrade boosted power by an extra 40 bhp, which helped Hartley and Gasly set times good enough for P6 and P7 in qualifying. Toro Rosso were also more relaxed on the requirements for the power unit dimensions, which allowed Honda greater freedom to increase the size of a number of components. Some of these changes alone provided an increase in power and reliability instantly, but despite the size increase, their PU still remained the most compact on the grid. The senior team Red Bull were closely observing the performance gains of the Honda and were very impressed with the progress, leading them to sign a 2-year deal for 2019 and 2020. A thing of beauty. That's how Christian Horner described the new power units on the very first day of testing. Max Verstappen was also in awe of Honda's masterpiece and picked up on their incredible attention to detail. En route to taking a podium at the Australian Grand Prix, Verstappen made a brilliant pass around the outside of Sebastian Vettel, which was an early sign that Red Bull and Honda had the potential to become a race-winning combination. This came to pass for the first time at the Austrian Grand Prix, where Max delivered Honda's first victory in Formula 1 for 13 years. Another win would follow just 2 races later in Hockenheim, and for the next weekend in Hungary, Verstappen took the first pole of his career and Honda's first of the turbo hybrid era. After the summer break came a number of power tracks, one being the Temple of Speed, Monza. The Spec 4 power units brought some significant changes to the combustion system, as well as a new fuel composition from their partners ExxonMobil, and it was this very upgrade that helped them reach the same level as Mercedes. But it took until the second last race of the season for this to become evident. The 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix was one of the most entertaining races of the decade. At this point, Hamilton had already wrapped up the championship in Austin, so it was really the first gloves of battle between him and Max Verstappen. The two went back and forth all race long, but in the end, the Dutchman outdueled his rival to take the 3rd win of the season. Pierre Gasly made it a Honda 1-2 with a superb drive in the Toro Rosso by outdragging Lewis Hamilton on the last lap to the line. And no, he didn't just hold Hamilton off, he actually began pulling away from the Mercedes, such was the strength of the power units. 2019 was the year Honda broke back into the spotlight. They ended the season with the least track failures of all 4 manufacturers and 0 engine-related retirements. Considering the point they were at 2 years ago, that's a monumental growth. So before the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, Red Bull and Honda announced that they would be extending their partnership to the 2021 season. In the last year and a half, they have only gone from strength to strength. 2 more race wins with Red Bull in 2020, as well as a stunning victory for Pierre Gasly in Monza, which resonated with Honda a lot more than people realize. The Frenchman's underdog success story, from being dropped by the senior team to winning with the junior team, showed his incredible fighting spirit and never say die mentality, one very similar to their own. For 3 straight years, they were the worst engine suppliers on the grid. In 2021, they are leading in both the Drivers and Constructors championships. Honda's journey in these past 6 years has been full of many trials and tribulations. But regardless, they have risen above everything that's been thrown their way and made it to the top once again. I hope you all enjoyed. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. If you don't mind, please consider sharing this video around with others to support the effort that's gone into making it, and subscribe to the channel with bell notifications to keep up to date with more in-depth stories like these in the future. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.